Julie, you're here. Can you hear us? Great.
Yes, I can.
Fantastic. So you may start.
Great. Thank you, Pat. Thanks for the introduction. So I will skip over the introductions, sorry I couldn't be there in person. I'm a bit frustrated about it, but happy that I can still take part in the agenda somehow. But I'm sure there will be future possibilities to meet in person. As Pat was saying, in our updated strategy, we have framed the mission of the WorldGBC, among others, to equipping finance actors to deploy impactful capital into the transition to sustainable built environments. And I'm here today to speak to you about some of the work we do towards that goal, and especially also to talk a bit about the EU taxonomy. So about WorldGBC, here's our, they look a bit broken, the slides, but anyway, I'm just gonna read it out. So it's supposed to say our vision is resilient and decarbonized buildings for a healthy planet and better future for all. The mission to achieve that vision is to inspire and lead built environment communities to drive local action and create the global momentum necessary for people and planet to thrive. So all our efforts are convened around the network that we have to create this positive momentum. And as many of you will know, there is also enough negative momentum to stop the transition. So we're here as a collective green force, so to say. And then the goals for that are total decarbonization of the built environment, as well as healthy, equitable, and resilient building cities and communities, and the regeneration of natural systems, and a thriving circular economy. Okay, this one looks better. So a few numbers about WorldGBC. We are a network of more than 75 green building councils that have the activities at the national level, like the Irish Green Building Council today here. We also have 60 corporate partners on the journey, and altogether our network represents more than 46,000 industry members. So this means that we represent, in terms of the global building stock, 60% of floor area, 62% of the worldwide global GDP, 75% of the emissions, and 60% of the urban population. Here, it goes further in a strategy on how we aim to deliver on our mission and goals. We do that through aligning ambition, definitions, actions, codes, and standards in the market. Partner with all the relevant built environment entities to work on a common goal. Some of those that are maybe familiar with WorldGBC, we're all about collaboration. We have a lot of them going on in parallel, and then we scale to the extent possible from the source of the network to the exterior, to the market, advocacy projects, solutions, and knowledge sharing. So with this local, regional, global network in nature, and it gives us a lot of advantages to tackle many of the challenges in the built environment. So we see ourselves as the center of the ambition loop, and you can see here some of the areas that we work on. Without going into the details, because WorldGBC is doing a lot of things in parallel, I'd like to focus on one of the three outcomes that is around these wheels. So we're going for systemic change, and therefore everything is interlinked. So we have these three wheels in the middle that our core activities, like the development of roadmaps, whole life carbon roadmaps that you may be familiar with in some of the European countries. And then also the fostering of policies and standards. And move on to the next slide. You see on the side of this ambition loop and the wheels, one of the pillars is equipping finance actors to deploy impactful capital. And so that brings me back to my own area of work at WorldGBC, which we mainly do through the WorldGBC Sustainable Finance Task Force that I've had the privilege, together with colleagues, to incept 2.5 years ago, and that I lead since, with a lot of great experts from the network, as you can see on the next slide. So in the kind of brighter green color, you can see the GBCs in the network, and then in the dark green color, you can see all the GBCs that take part in our finance work. So we have representation from each corner of the world. Some of the strategies, I don't expect anyone to read this in particular, but I just wanted to highlight that we have 4 pillars of change on our work on sustainable finance that is linked to WorldGBC strategy. It's the partnership, creating thought leadership, which is a lot of the fact sheets that Pat mentioned earlier. Also advocacy, for example, through position papers I will talk a bit more about in a minute, but also we've been doing a lot of advocacy on the EU taxonomy in the last years, and then capacity building in the network and outside, which often is done also by the GBCs themselves. So a bit more about our work on the EU taxonomy. I've had the privilege for the past 2.5 years now to every second Thursday host the great experts from the GBC network and discuss what to do with this EU taxonomy, how to implement it, how to make sure that it's similar between, let's say, Ireland, Spain, or Norway, Poland. Like, are we understanding the criteria the same way? What is happening in each market? How do we find the data, etc.? So, a lot of these challenges with this new piece of legislation. And for those that are maybe not super familiar with EU taxonomy, it's essentially a list of economic activities with criteria, this defining what level of sustainability they have to reach to be labeled as a green investment. This can be green turnover, green operational expenses, or capital expenditures. So moving on to the next slide. Here are some of these fact sheets that Pat mentioned at the beginning. So we had, end of last year, 3 major fact sheets on basically all the energy-related criteria in the EU taxonomy that are linked to the EPBD, so the Energy Performance of Building Directive, which is transposed differently by each member state. So we do bring here a map of all the different standards that one needs to comply with to be EU taxonomy aligned, and also highlighted some of the major implementation challenges and made recommendations how to improve the status of EU taxonomy reporting. And I put this little logo on the slide just to also remind everyone that WorldGBC has before and is again now sitting on the platform on sustainable finance, which is an independent expert advisory group that supports the European Commission and specifically the finance regulators to develop good and impactful sustainable finance legislation. So we are back currently on this platform and also have quite a few activities that we do under that mandate. Now let me use the bit of time remaining to just mention that we have been with the network this year working on a position paper, as Pat mentioned, on the need for framework for standardized, robust, and independent EU taxonomy verification and assurance services in construction and real estate. We are currently waiting with our draft and plan to have it published early next year. There is a lot of issues, as I mentioned before, on the way the EU taxonomy is being used in the market and how differently it's being used in the market. And we realize that it's not enough to only help to write good criteria, better criteria, but there is also the need for third-party verification and how companies report towards the EU taxonomy. And the reporting of the EU taxonomy, it's a bit complicated. We unpack that in this position paper. There's a lot of different ways and a regulatory environment around the EU taxonomy that mandates disclosures and sometimes actually also mandates second party opinion or third party verification. But in some instances not, and that's also where we see the weakest accountability of EU taxonomy reporting. Moving on to my last slide, which is a little preview of our unpublished position paper. Because we, after explaining all the issues with the EU taxonomy and what we think needs to happen to fill this kind of weak reporting gap, we propose a proper EU taxonomy verification and assurance framework to tackle this uncertainty in the markets, and probably also work against the potential backlash of the green finance measures that many of you have already touched upon also in our first discussions yesterday. But it's something that you hear, and with the voting that we can see across Europe, there is a proper need to strengthen the green finance policies and frameworks. So we think that this framework could do that and build trust and simplify the reporting processes. So we think such a framework could uphold general principles for EU taxonomy reporting, acknowledging that the situation is different in every country, and also help to have some type of standardized credential for official EU taxonomy verifiers and assurers, to make sure that they have a minimum of expertise and governance in place to properly do the auditing job. And also the provision of basically to strengthen the sustainability aspect of the verification. The proposal would be to also provide some capacity building and training. And we also imagine this framework to be dynamic, as the EU taxonomy regulation is dynamic. So to just keep its life over the many years. So I think I will stop here, and I'm sure there will be great follow-up discussions to this point. So yeah, thanks for having listened. And well, I can't talk about it with you today, sadly, but I hope to still remain in discussion with everyone. Thank you.